After 100 hours, I finally completed The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And before we get started, if you're new to my channel, please hit that like button, ring the bell, and leave a comment. Get to it.
But Link, I am not sure you'll be able to stop him.
So to get started, let's begin with the story. Tears of the Kingdom takes place a number of years after Breath of the Wild, in the Kingdom of Hyrule. The story begins with Link and Zelda setting out to explore a cavern beneath Hyrule Castle. And this is where gloom, a poisonous substance, has been seeping out and causing people to fall ill. As they decide to go deeper, they eventually trigger the awakening of a mummy who attacks both of them with gloom. Link's right arm is badly damaged, the Master Sword is shattered, and Hyrule Castle is raised upwards by this mummified corpse to be the Demon King Ganondorf. As Zelda falls below, Link tries to catch her. Link is suddenly rescued by a green arm, who eventually reveals himself to be the spirit of Rauru, a Zonai, as Link awakens in the Great Sky Island. And in the process of Link's great adventure, he learns about the upheaval and travels to many locations when he gets into systems from Sidon, a Zora, Tulin, a young Rito, Yunobo, a Goron, and Riju, the chief of the Gerudo. And unlike Breath of the Wild, although similar in style of the story being told, it's done a lot better because it's interwoven into the missions, side missions, and main plot of the story. Although you gather these dragon tears to recover some story elements in cutscenes, and although they can be gathered out of order and sometimes spoil some of the story details, it's still a lot better and a lot more engaging than Breath of the Wild, because even the world building with the NPC characters trying to rebuild this disastrous Hyrule that's been broken makes it for a richer experience than Breath of the Wild ever has, and it's less empty with just so much to do.
Please, lend him your power.
Now, let's move on to the graphics and art style. It's clear that Tears of the Kingdom was built from the ground up using the Switch's hardware, and it's been pushed to its limits with better textures. It's less blurry than Breath of the Wild. The lighting is better. There's a lot more detail in Link's armor, his clothing, the weapons, and just the amount of enemies that you see on screen. The draw distance is a lot further, and the beautiful use of the clouds, the enemy animations, the colors. If you do put it side by side, Breath of the Wild, it's a clear step up. Now the performance does take a dip in some areas where things do slow down, but that's only in rare occasions when there's a lot of enemies on screen at once. But artistically speaking, with the cell shading and the art style, this is another beautiful Nintendo Switch game. Now, let's talk about the music. Tears of the Kingdom's music is a huge step from Breath of the Wild that just used natural sounds and some of the piano music, although I personally love that. A lot of people did criticize it for lacking any memorable songs and dungeon themes and boss battles. However, Tears of the Kingdom rectifies that by remixing a lot of music from the old games into the boss music, and one of my favorites is here in the Sky Temple. And even when you're fighting the boss, it just adds to the atmosphere and tension and battle music when you're fighting enemies, different bosses. And it's just great to see that they've added and implemented a lot more classic themes. It'll take you some time to spot them, but when you do, you'll appreciate them. It really does feel like there's a combination of what Breath of the Wild did with the nature sounds and some of the classic music that we all know and love.
It's coming from below again!
And adding to the tension is the brand new Depths, and its sinister score fills this mysterious void perfectly. One of the most important aspects of this game is the gameplay and how it revolutionized the Zelda series when it came to Breath of the Wild, and now this one built on top of that. So this open world adventure follows in the footsteps of Breath of the Wild, but instead the previous game's runes have been replaced with 5 new abilities: the Ultra Hand, the Fuse, Ascend, Recall, and Auto Build. With Ultra Hand you're able to pick up items and fuse them together. And this is actually one of the bases of this game, where you're able to use everything you find, like all the food, enemy body parts, and fuse any of these rusted weapons that you'll find throughout the world. And now it feels like the breakable weapon system has been improved a lot more, where the materials you find throughout your adventure don't seem like a waste and everything has viability. And even traversal this time around, like for example using Ascend allows players to move upwards through solid surfaces. This helps with traveling and kind of remedies things like when it's raining or the frustration of just climbing alone. Every part of this system just works perfectly together, and this is what people were talking about, where it feels like Breath of the Wild was almost like a prototype. This game just feels fully realized with all of these new abilities. It's such a fun game to explore as you're gliding through the sky, diving into the surface, and eventually all the way into the depths. These 3 tiers just work perfectly together, and this is a huge open world adventure. And I just can't say this enough, the way that Nintendo made this game isn't broken, with so much abilities and gameplay mechanics working together. It's ridiculous how seamless everything is, and once you're playing the game, everything just clicks. When you're auto building, when you're making makeshift rafts, basically making airplanes, motorcycles, travel just seems so fun and the possibilities are endless.
In this game, fusing even the weakest weapon with something else could turn it into a useful weapon. There are even more gameplay options for sticking things together.
So, what did you guys think of Tears of the Kingdom? Have you completed the main story? All of the side quests? There's so much to do in this game. This is a huge open world game. I'm going to be playing it for the next year or two, just trying to slowly complete certain shrines, different side quests, different missions. There's so much to do. And one of the last things I wanted to talk about were the return of the traditional dungeons. This is what people wanted in Breath of the Wild, and they are finally back. Although not very complex, they have great dungeon design, great puzzles, and even more memorable bosses as well. And the shrines have been improved greatly with so many options at your disposal. There are so many ways in which to solve them, and you know that's another sign of great game design. So, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Do not look away. You witness a king's revival and the birth of his new world.